have such a fantastic story of being a Southern girl who has made her way to the big city and really making waves for yourself in the music industry. So first, you're the president and really the founder of HH Creative LLC. For those who don't know what that is, what do you do on the daily?
So I am an artist manager for musicians, but my company also encapsulates what I do for musicians with consulting, design, event coordination too. It's kind of a little bit of everything.
So when I think of music and cities with thriving music districts, you know, for Tennessee, I think of Nashville, Music City, that's where all the country stars are. But you say there's a thriving community right here. Kind of talk about the music industry in the Knoxville area from your perspective.
Yeah, so I was lucky enough to get my start in music in Knoxville at AC Entertainment, and a lot of people my age did the same thing. And for us, that was really our foot in the door in this industry. And many of us are still here, either working remotely for other companies or working for ourselves. And beyond the music that actually comes out of Knoxville, there's a lot of music business too. I mean, my neighbor's a booking agent. You know, I have regular meetings with other people who work at labels or studios. You know, I know some other managers in town, so we're all kind of doing our thing, maybe a little bit under the radar.
Are you a musician?
No.
So how does one choose? You know, I thought at some point you're going to say, yes, I sing on the side a little bit.
So I was a choir kid.
Okay.
So, you know, that counts. And definitely, I mean, I had planned to pursue music in some form or fashion in college, thinking about auditioning for choir there, decided not to. But then my first taste of kind of the behind the scenes was booking concerts at my college. I did that for a year, and getting to interface with the artists, with their teams, setting up, you know, the rooms for them to come and play, that really kind of sparked my interest in this side of music.
Okay, so before we get to what you're doing now and,
Yeah.
and having your own business, what was it like? So when you're working with all these artists, I think we have an idea of the music industry,
Yeah.
but you saw a lot of it firsthand, whether it's indie artists or those that are even larger. What were some of your best takeaways from that time?
Oh man, so that was a really fun time because it was just very shoestring, you know, and I was on campus.
This is Carson Newman?
This is Carson
Okay.
Newman. And I had an interest to bring in some new kind of sounds to campus. You know, we kind of had a regular rotation of musicians that would come and people would respond to, and that was great. But I wanted to kind of try some new things. So one of my favorite memories was booking the Civil Wars, which they, you know, were a band that ended up kind of blowing up right after they played Carson Newman. They played Leno the next week. And so
wow.
we had like the little kind of preview, you know, and it was just the two of them. They came and we were setting up mics, you know, on stage with them, hoping we were doing it the right way. And then they just kind of went astronomical after that. So that was really fun.
Is being a manager, was this your life dream, or is this something you realized over time? Wait a minute, this is something I can do. I need to pivot a little bit.
Definitely over time. I double majored in college in English and graphic design, and I loved those two things, but I still didn't know what I wanted to do. I thought I would probably end up being a graphic designer, but getting my first, you know, kind of step into the music industry through my first job, I was an artist management assistant. I was working in marketing, eventually doing marketing full-time and social media for music festivals. And that kind of paved the way for me to see, like, okay, here's what I really enjoy doing in the music industry. I know I want to be in this industry, but more specifically, I want to work directly with artists. And artist management is basically the closest path to that. So.
What does that look like? For those who don't know, and when
Yeah.
I say for those, I mean me, what does an artist manager do? Because I only remember it from the movies and see kind of that interaction, but I'm sure it's so much more.
Well, I always say every artist manager will define it differently. And sometimes we get a bad rap from movies and TV. You know, you see like Bohemian Rhapsody or Love and
Yes.
Mercy, and it's, you know, you see these kind of harrowing experiences. But for me, I say that I act as kind of the filter that everything passes through before it gets to the artist. And my goal is to give them as much time, space, and brain capacity to be creative. So, you know, I try to filter in all the inquiries that come for them. It's really about team management. So the band that I work with, Sunlux, at any given time, there are 30 people working on that team. So Michael, my management partner, and I, you know, we're working to just make sure that we're on top of, you know, our booking agents, you know, are they staying on top of the dates that we have been talking about? You know, publicists, publishers, labels, digital marketing, graphic designers. We're kind of the liaison, not just for the artist, but for everyone else to the artist.
When you decided to switch over and go at it on your own, because you know you're at this big company, you're at AC Entertainment, it's safe, it's comfortable, you're there. Did you ever think you'd be where you are today? Because you just recently went on a little trip with Sunlux, and
I did.
To be fair, I went and listened to their album. I like it.
It's wild.
It was very good, and they've kind of taken you somewhere. Talk about your latest journey, where you said, "I never thought I'd be here."
Yeah. So I went to the Oscars 2023, and it was really quite a trip for all of us, because they were nominated for Best Original Song and Best Original Score for Everything Everywhere All at Once, which ended up winning Best Picture. They did not win, but it was their first nominations, their first score as a band. They were the first band to be nominated in that category of score since the Beatles. So we were just like, this is the prize, you know?
Right.
It was really, we were all just kind of learning as we went, and happy to be there together. So yeah, the journey, I definitely could have never predicted, even stepping out on my own into working with artists directly, that would happen. Because when I first started out, I was offering more like project management services, because my expertise at that time was more social media focused, but I didn't want to stay in that lane. It just wasn't fulfilling to me. But I needed to gain skills in what it means to be an artist manager. So I slowly built that up through working with the band, working with the members on their solo projects, and then slowly bringing on new clients as well.
I think we all have in our career little moments that give us like the little pat on the back to say, okay, you're going in the right direction. This is good. Was that moment when you found out they were nominated one of those like, oh yeah, this is good?
Yeah, I was just so proud of them, and the day of the Oscar nominations happened to be the band's founder's birthday. I mean, it just all felt, you know, really right and really powerful, and especially just to have this little weird movie have taken on such a snowball effect, and people just really resonating with it was really special to all of us.
Are there a lot of women in the industry doing what you do?
Yes, they're just not as loud as a lot of other people are, or they're just the ones getting stuff done, you know? Women producers, designers, managers, booking agents, they're there for sure. Maybe not, it's still a little disparate, but yes, definitely.
What do you like doing? Like what is the thing that makes you get up in the morning and go, it's time to go to work?
I love working with my artists on long-term projects and see them come to fruition. So the artists that I work with are in a niche of kind of musician composers. So they are both writing and releasing their own music, but also, you know, composing bigger pieces where they might engage a string quartet or a chamber ensemble. And I really love working to find the right home and venue and partners for those projects. And, you know, sometimes that's a 3-year process. I've had, you know, instances where we have had something come together, but we're waiting on, the right financial partners to come through. Or in the case of COVID, one of my artists was supposed to perform with the BBC Concert Orchestra March 12th, 2020. And obviously that didn't happen. And the show happened 2022. And we've been working on that since 2019. So, we couldn't have predicted that long of a runway, but it was so fulfilling to see it come together. And that tends to be the case with some of these bigger projects. It's a little bit of a slower process, but I really enjoy the process of putting the puzzle together and just trying to make it happen for the artist.
I know you work with artists outside of Knoxville, but for the ones that are here in the East Tennessee area, what are some of the hardest obstacles that they face in the artist community here? So
I do consultations with artists in our area, and I think kind of what you were saying earlier, it's hard to break through the barrier of Tennessee music is Nashville, or professional music is Nashville, viable music is Nashville. There's a certain sound I think you associate with Tennessee music, which is country and bluegrass, singer-songwriter, which all are great and they're all part of our history. But there's a lot of interesting experimental music going on too, and that's kind of the lane that I'm in. And there's a lot of that happening in Knoxville, and I think sometimes it's birthed out of that kind of frustration, that people think that Tennessee music is a monolith, and it's really not.
Wow. What was the hardest part about starting your own business? Because that's got to be scary. Unless you sit up here and tell me it wasn't, then you'll be the first person to tell me. But it had to have been a little daunting to get started.
Yeah, it definitely was. I think there was an element of I understood my artists a little bit better because their creation, what they're putting out in the world, is them. It's their name, it's their product, if you want to call music that. And this was my turn to do that, So all I had to go on was, hoping that the work that I had done previously resonated, that people would be engaged and want to work with me in some form or fashion. It's been a really rewarding road, and I've felt very not just lucky, but also I have been able to chart the path for me that is the most fulfilling, and that's not just in the work that I do, but in what my work allows me to do outside of work too, which is important.
You've received several awards. What's your favorite?
40 Under 40 was fun, just because, you look at those lineups and it's a lot of people from companies and firms and agencies who are obviously very well deserving. And so then for me to just be there for me, my company, I'm a solo person, that meant a lot.
Okay, so normally I go through some other questions about, work and inspiration, but I want to have some fun because I love looking into your background. First of all, I did not know you were the class valedictorian. Shout out to Seymour High School.
That's right.
Okay, tell me about it. Was that your goal, just to be valedictorian?
Well, I think we had about 8 valedictorians, if I remember correctly, because we had a lot of overachievers in our class, and I was one of them. I don't know if I ever thought of that as a goal, but I definitely had it as the end, that's going to be my end mark on my high school career. So,
why Carson Newman? Because you're from East Tennessee. You could have gone valedictorian. You could have gone anywhere. Why did you choose to stay in East Tennessee? I
was really interested in their kind of smaller campus.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of my classmates went to UT, which is great, and felt very fulfilled there. But I also wanted to live out of my home and just try that for a little bit. And Carson Newman's about an hour from where I grew up. So it was just enough of a little push without, I could still come home and do my laundry when I needed to.
Get some cooking from your parents.
Yes. So, yeah, and it ended up being a really great fit for me.
How different is was your childhood, like where you grew up versus being in Knoxville now? Because you lived in more of a rural area in Seymour?
I did. I had a great childhood, and my parents always let me be as, creative and wild as I wanted to be. We grew up, and my parents still live on a beautiful road and piece of land that is so meaningful to all of us. So I grew up feeling, I don't know, something about that space made me feel like I had I had a big horizon. And so now living in Knoxville, I love our city, and I love where I live and being engaged here, but it's also nice to know, like, when I go and visit my parents or my grandparents or, my family there, it feels like a little bit of a deep breath, and I think Knoxville feels that way to people who visit from bigger cities,
I'm from Miami, so this is a big deep breath every day for me.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
So you've done some study abroad time. Tell me about your time in Italy, I believe.
Yeah, that was really fun. I was there for 5 weeks, I think, right after my sophomore year, studying art as part of my art major, and it was wonderful. I still keep in touch with a lot of my friends from there, but also that time was really formative for me to see how big the world was and how small we are, and that was really helpful for me in a way. I enjoyed learning so much about the history there too, which feels so deep and so long, and knowing that people have been creating art, and by the same token, people have been supporting art for a long time.
Give me your wildest story on one of your jobs, one of your interactions with a band or a music festival. Come on, give me something that people just don't know.
Well, you'll think this is funny. So I was working a festival one year and got looped in somehow to work a Kendrick Lamar meet and greet.
Oh, okay.
And it was very secluded behind a stage, and they said, "You're going to work security." And I said,
okay, wait.
what?
If you all have never met her, she's a very petite woman.
And Kendrick's petite too, but I was like, I'm more petite, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So it was fine, and I just kind of stood there and, everything looked okay. But
I'm glad nothing went down.
No, nothing did. You're welcome.
Wow. So, your company clearly has grown. Why do you stay here in East Tennessee? Because sometimes, you start to expand, you've got a good team, you could pick up and move anywhere.
Yeah, definitely. East Tennessee still very much feels like home, not just in the rootedness of the place, but with the people. I have friends here that I've grown up with. We're still growing up together, having my family here, and my husband and I both love the area. But I think it also, in the work that I do, gives me a healthy buffer. All of my artists live in big cities like New York, LA, Mexico City, Philadelphia, Indianapolis.
Oh, wow.
And I think sometimes it's easy for them to feel that that's the whole world, which there is a whole world of music and film and, amazing creativity there, but it can, I think it can create a level of insular stress, to some extent. And so to have me have a little bit of a buffer with that and be able to take a step back, help them kind of prioritize, still see the horizon, it's good for them, and it's good for me too, to kind of keep my head on straight and not be totally, laser focused in any one way.
Did you ever have a moment where you felt like you couldn't do all this?
No.
She's like, period. I love that.
Yeah.
So this is your calling. This is it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it may, shift and change in what that sort of support looks like that artists need. You know, I think an artist manager 10 years ago, what they were doing 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it always looks different. But I very much enjoy being an advocate for my artists.
What do you listen to? What's your genre of music? Your artists, they're not listening right now. They're not watching. But just like, what do you listen to?
Lately, let's see. So I went to Big Ears this year, which I used to work on, and it's you know, I've been attending now for a few years. I loved Adrian Linker was an artist there that I really enjoyed. Claire Rousey. Yeah, artists that are doing interesting things in lanes you wouldn't necessarily expect. But then I throw on Dolly. I mean, duh. You
well,
know,
she's kind of a standard.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to that. And, you know, then I've got my gym playlist. It's, you know.
It's just a little bit of everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love this. Where do you see yourself going from here? What's the big vision for HH? What's the big vision for your creative group?
I think, and I tell my artists this, my goal is to create a sustainable life for myself and for them in a creative field, because it's so historically unsustainable or unpredictable, you know, and there are so many instances of that with artists talking about, you know, touring not being a viable means of making money. And, you know, there's just all these conversations happening about how expensive it is to be an artist. But at the end of the day, we all turn to art for comfort and for, you know, healing and all of these things. So it's so vital and it's so important. And so for the people that are making that, it's just as important for them and their support systems to feel that there's a path forward. So what I'm doing now, what I hope I'm doing for my artists, is setting a path forward for, you know, a long-term sustainable life, so they can retire, so they can live in a comfortable and healthy way. You know, I'm not shooting for the stars, but I want them to have the same sense of stability that people in 9-to-5 jobs have, because their work is just as important.
Hannah Hauser, HH Creative, you are wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.